What's up guys, this is episode 5 of ranking every WCA event on a tier list, and today we're doing the most impressive world class. We have 17 events here. I'm going to sort them to the best of my ability, with S tier being the best, E tier being the worst, and I'm also going to sort the events within each tier. This will contribute to an overall point ranking at the end of the video on a spreadsheet with the quote-unquote best WCA event at the end of the series. So to start, I wanted to spend a bit of time talking about what it actually means to be the most impressive world class, because obviously every event is competitive, every event is equally competitive, maybe with the exception of 3x3 being higher, but today we're talking about what's the most impressive. Obviously they're all impressive, and I think what makes something impressive are skills that most people will not have. Despite 3x3, 2x2, 4x4, 5x6, 6x6 and 7x7 all being really cool, really competitive at a high level, but is there really something that's just like, does this person have a specific skill that other events don't have? And I think that's what really makes an event impressive as a world-class event. In the previous ranking we did most impressive to a non-cuber, and I was basically on the basis of which of these events is the idea of solving the most impressive. This time, however, we're going to be doing it in the eyes of a cuber, and we're going to be looking at it at a world-class level. Let's get started, and let's start with 2x2. So what is 2x2 known for? And the answer is speed. At a high level, 2x2 is solved in less than like 1.1 seconds consistently, and I think seeing someone pick up a cube, solve it, and drop it is something that none of these events have. And you know, the ability to one look an entire solve, it's just something that none of the events have. And I've seen people being like, oh, how do people turn so quickly? How do people pick up the cube so fast? Oh my god. Picking up and dropping the cube for me takes like 1 second on self. So I think 2x2 definitely deserves an A tier. It's definitely not the most impressive in the world, but I think just because of how fast it is, it deserves an A. On the other hand, 3x3 at a high level is really competitive. However, in my eyes, 3x3 is like the average of all the events. It's got the look ahead of like big cubes, it's got the speed of the small cubes, and everyone can solve a 3x3. Obviously, the top cubes are the best, but in my eyes, it's not that special. However, to be world class, you need to be in comparison better at the event than any of these other 17 events. But normally I would put it in D. I think I want to put it in C just because of the fact that 3x3 is harder to be better, therefore it's more impressive. 4x4, 5x5, 6x6 and 7x7. Watching these events is really cool. However, it's really just turning fast and having excellent look ahead. Like, don't get me wrong, solving these big cubes without pauses is really impressive. However, it's not like stupidly fast, it's not got memorization, it's not got some really weird unique thing with the event. Now I might get backlash to this, but I don't think there's anything special about these big cubes that other events have. From my experience, if person A says like, oh, I main 6x6, people would say, oh yeah, cool. But then if someone says I main 5x5 blindfold, everyone's like, oh my god, how do you solve 5x5 blindfold that fast? Because there are so many of these cubes, like if it was just one 7x7, then yeah, it probably would be really impressive. I hate to say it, but they're all going in E tier. And because I'm going to sort these in order, I'm going to put them from largest to smallest. I think clock is both the most impressive and the absolute least impressive thing in the world. There is some sort of stereotype with clock, how it's a really stupid event. You just turn a bunch of dials, stop the time. Like, yeah, it might not be the most spectator friendly thing. However, it's so fast and it's so easy to do a misturn, and DNFs are so easy. You have to do so much work on being able to not DNF, and because most people try not to flip or forgot memorization and that stuff, there's just some aspect of clock that makes it kind of impressive. Is it as impressive as the speed of 2x2? No. I'm gonna have to put that in B tier. Clock is a brutal event. Like Lachlan Gibson not making World Championship finals. That is what you have to experience as a top clock solver. You need to be able to handle the pressure at really high stakes moment and not overturn or underturn. Megaminx is kind of like the big cubes, where it's got a lot of look ahead, relatively long event compared to some of the sprint events like Pyraminx and 2x2. It looks really cool, I just don't think it's that impressive. The only argument that I can see that Megaminx being more impressive than the big cubes is that it's really awkward to hold and turn. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in D tier. It doesn't deserve anything higher than D. Pyraminx has the annoyingness of tips. You have to be able to foresee how you turn the tips in your solves, and that can be pretty hard. So I do have respect for the top Pyraminx solvers. It's also quite a fast event, but it's not as fast as 2x2, so it doesn't really get credit for being fast, I don't think. I think I'm gonna put it in C tier with 3x3. Time for Skewb, and I think Skewb is really comparable to Pyraminx. It's got a similar speed of Pyraminx, maybe a bit slower, but it's nowhere near as impressive as 2x2, so I don't think it gets credit from that. Skewb does get some criticism for being just sledges and hedges over and over again, and there is an argument for D. However, I think just the turning looks kind of weird and whack, so I think it's comparable to Pyraminx, but yeah, I think Skewb C is where it belongs. levels. Normally I give an explanation and then put a tier, but for square one, it's going top of A tier. High level square one solvers need to learn so many algorithms. At the start of the video, I said what makes an event impressive is it's got skills that other events don't have. And square one, the amount of algorithms that they learn, specifically OBL, it's just crazy. Samir Agarwal, who won World Championship 2012, he literally said, I forgot the algorithm. That shows how many algorithms, how much they have to push themselves to learn so much. It's definitely a different skill. I think it deserves A tier. I think one-hand turners have a lot of respect. Basically 3x3, except you need to be more move efficient. People are learning ZBLL for one hand. A combination of efficiency, TPS, you need dexterity for that, is just really cool. So B tier, I think it's not as impressive as Clock. FMC pro solvers are insane. This ranking, I've been saying the most unique skills compared to other events, and I think FMC is single-handedly has some of the most unique skills. The thought process and how they spend that 1 hour of FMC solving, it's just flabbergasting. They use so many weird techniques, a lot of the names that I have no idea, and that's why I'm actually gonna put it in S tier. I know, putting FMC in S tier is cruel, but this is for cubers. I think cubers will appreciate how hard FMC is. And now it's all the blind events. Starting with multi-blind. Multi-blind is genuinely insane. The fact that you have to memorize, what is it, like 1,000 letters of memo or something at a high level, doing 60, nearly 70 cubes, memorizing all, doing it blindfolded, having all the finger tricks to go fast. It's just really ridiculously cool. We talk about unique skills. Multi-blind really has a skill that no other event has, concentration, but also the memo and execution. In the same boat, I'm gonna put 5 blind in S tier. Multi-blind has the advantage of being length-based. 5x5 blindfolded has the advantage of just being really fast and having a lot of memo. I'm just gonna say 3 blind has the advantage of being fast compared to multi-blind. However, I just don't think got the unique skills enough to put in S tier. 5x5 blindfold is like 3x3 blindfold, but just more memo. Multi-blind is just 3x3 blindfold, but just 60 times. Even though the advantage of 3 blind is that it's fast, I think the fact that people can do 60 cubes blindfolded really make 3x3 blindfold look less impressive. I think A tier because it's not as unique. And 4x4 blindfold, I could see it being put in S tier and A tier, just because 5x5 blindfold overshadows 4x4 blindfold. I would put it in A tier, so I would put it above 3x3 blind. However, Stanley Chapel, him as an individual pushed 4 blind into the bottom of S tier. Purely him shows the determination and the difficulty and the burden that 4x4 blindfold has. Alright, and that's my ranking for the most impressive world-class 2 cubers. I'm gonna go put this onto a spreadsheet now and see the current rankings. Alright, here's this week's rankings, and as you can see in this column here, we have episode 5, most impressive world class. So for a quick summary, the number of points that an event gets is equal to the number of events in a lower tier. For instance, all the events in E tier get 0 points because there were no events lower than them, and all the S tier events got 13 points because there were 13 events in A tier or lower. This means that the points for each tier changes each week. And then over here, we have the number of times that each event got each tier. So for instance, in S tier, so if our multi-blind has gotten S tier 3 times and is 4th overall, which can be seen in this ranking here. One hand is in 1st place, 3x3 blindfold in 2nd place, and 3x3 is in 3rd place. We have the 3x3 events, which if you saw last episode, you probably know exactly why. So that's really it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and please consider checking out the other episodes of this series. Alright, see ya.